Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and with round 4 still to be confirmed after Vietnam dropped out and now Australia and China under threat for the 2021 F1 Championship, I've been thinking what other tracks could take their place in the sport and what tracks I would just like to see in general. Also, I'm not going to be talking about tracks that are brought back recently last year, like Imola and Nürburgring, because we already know what F1 is like there now with these modern cars on these classic tracks. Instead, I want to see what tracks would be cool to host F1 events that have either not been used by modern F1 cars or never used at all. So without further ado, let's begin with none other than Donington Park. And I know it is a Grade 2 circuit, i.e. not suitable for Formula 1, but so was Zandvoort, and even now I'd say Donington is still way more suitable for F1 than Zandvoort is in my opinion, because, believe it or not, you can actually overtake. So of course, Donington is most famous for that notorious 1993 European Grand Prix, with Ayrton Senna's lap of gods leading him to victory, with only the most cursed trophy I've ever seen in my life. But after this, Donington kinda lay dormant until 2010 that is, when a new layout was proposed to take Silverstone's place for the British Grand Prix, until that plan went out the window and Silverstone continued with a new layout of its own, which we still use today. So looking at a map of Donington, and I think there's quite a lot of fun to be had. I'm imagining a DRS zone down the back straight to allow some good battles into the chicane, which I think is a perfect setup for the two hairpins that follow. I could easily imagine dive bombs into the Melbourne hairpin and then the other car gets a switchback on them coming into the Goddard's hairpin right before the line. I think it could be some good battling, and also, turn 1, nice and tight right-hander, probably a good centre of action, especially in the early laps, especially on the first lap that is. And I think the only other real overtaking opportunity would probably be at turn 7. It's kinda deceptive being a blind corner at the top of a hill, it's a lot sharper than it looks, and I can imagine some sneaky overtakes happening up there. In my opinion, Donington and Silverstone are the only two tracks in the UK that could host an F1 race, since pretty much every other UK track is like the normal UK roads, old and narrow. I mean, could you imagine F1 at a track like Oulton Park? If you've seen races there, you know it's pretty much bumper cars throughout the middle sector especially, so F1 probably would want to avoid most UK tracks for obvious reasons. The only real potential problem I find with Donington is its length. At only 4.02 kilometers, it will be the shortest track in F1 behind Monaco and just in front of the aforementioned Zandvoort. But regardless, I think it would be nice to see Donington make a comeback in Formula 1. Will it though? Probably not, but it's a nice thought to think about. Now moving on to another track I'd like to see in F1, and that is the Kaimi Ring in Finland, which, unlike Donington, has never been used in F1, which makes sense as it hasn't really been used full stop yet. With its debut major race originally being around in the 2020 MotoGP Championship, which thanks to a little problem called COVID didn't happen last year. But there is a lot of fun and potential with this track, as it already is a Grade 1 track under the FIA, so unlike Donington, nothing would need to be fixed for F1 to race there. So first of all, Finland has a pretty major showing in F1's history books, with Raikkonen and Bottas on the current grid, and of course two former world champions in Keke Rosberg and Mika Hakkinen, so I think it would be a great opportunity for F1 to race in Finland for the first time. And now looking at the Kaimi Ring itself, and you begin with a quick right-hand kink before a long swooping left-hander before going into a sharp right-hand hairpin. Sound familiar? Well, to me this looks pretty similar to the first couple corners at Silverstone, which we know provides plenty of drama, so that's already a tick in my book. And after this long, probably DRS assisted back straight, we arrive at this kinda squiggly final sector that folds back and forth in itself, kinda reminding me of Interlagos actually, so I'd be pretty happy for this circuit to make its place in Formula 1. It's got the grade, it's got the corners, it's got the facilities, it's got the lot. So I think it's probably one of the most likely options F1 will choose if they have to bring F1 to a new country, and not one of those god-awful Hermann Tilke tracks because they're shit. And then moving along swiftly once again, and the track I would like to see F1 return to the most is an old classic of F1 that's faded away from the spotlight in the 21st century, and that is of course Kyalami. You know how this sport is the FIA Formula 1 World Championship? Well, let's have a look at this world in question, and it should come as no surprise that on the current F1 calendar, Africa is the only continent not represented, which is a massive shame. Formula 1, especially last year striving with We Racers 1, allegedly, it would be nice to once again get to see some African circuits back on the calendar, and I know that's obviously a lot easier said than done, as are all of these track suggestions. But Kyalami is one of only 3 African tracks to have hosted an F1 Grand Prix alongside Ain Diab and East London, and today Kyalami is by far the most properly equipped and overall top level track on the continent to host a Formula 1 Grand Prix. So looking at the track itself now, and you start off with a long pit straight into a sharp left-hander, into a sort of zigzag to get the cars to battle side by side, before racing down to this long fast right-hander, which although won't be great for racing, would still be a spectacle to see the cars flat out through such a great piece of tarmac. The circuit then continues its winding path through the hills, as the circuit does have quite a lot of elevation change, which is always a plus, before ending off the lap with another hairpin style corner back onto the pit straight. The circuit is also at a pretty good size, at about 4.6 kilometers long, and to put that into perspective, it's just shy of Barcelona's length, but a lot longer than some other tracks like Interlagos and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Now again, alongside Donington Park, Kyalami would have to make some similar changes like Zandvoort, as it is a grade 2 track under the FIA, so it would need to do something or other to make it way up the ladder to be eligible for Formula 1. But to conclude, those are my 3 main tracks I would love to see in Formula 1. There aren't ones we've seen recently, i.e. Imola and Nürburgring, and there are of course plenty others I would love to see, most notably Jerez and maybe Fuji, even though it wasn't particularly long ago we saw them. But anyway, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe, comment, share, and I'll be back in the next video. See ya!